Hello again everyone and welcome back to the channel. In today's video we're going to be showcasing the best of Brazil with a Microsoft Flight Simulator. We're going to be taking a reasonably casual look at the BRsimDesigns EMB121 Xingu, and we're going to be taking our aircraft between a couple of beautifully created sceneries courtesy of V1 Studios. I've been wanting to take a look at the EMB121 for quite some time now, so I thought that both the aircraft and the sceneries would make a great matchup. As usual, we're going to be carrying out a full flight here today. Currently, we find ourselves early evening here on the ground at V1 Studios Poços de Caldas airport, and we're going to be taking our Xingu along with 4 customs officers up towards Barra de Garças. It should be a good flight. We'll be arriving in towards destination late on here in the evening. As always, I do hope you enjoy it. If you do, please consider giving the video a like and subscribing to the channel. So good evening and welcome then to the cockpit of BRsimDesigns EMB121 Xingu. As discussed during the introduction, we are currently on the ground at V1 Studios Poços de Caldas airport, and we're going to be taking the aircraft over towards the Barra de Garças airport. As usual, we've just boarded a cold and dark aircraft, just got the doors closed up, so we are now ready to run our way through the pre-flight checks. Starting then with the battery master can go on. Just cancel the master warning. And checking the battery voltage. Currently up there just below 25 volts. The left and right converters can both go on. Nav lights, we'll select those on. Passenger and cabin lights are set as required. We'll just take the seatbelts and the no smoking signs on there as well. The fire detection system will carry out a left engine fire test. A little bit tricky to see in this lighting, but we do have the appropriate lighting. We'll cancel the master warning. And same there on the right engine. The angle of attack indicators, we'll test those. You can see there as well we have the stick shaker and the stick push. Again, we'll cancel the warning. We do have the appropriate light there on the left. And we'll do the same there on the right system. So overall, pretty nice modelling from the aircraft. Certainly a fair amount of depth in terms of the systems. Not necessarily study level, but again, nice that the stick shaker, stick push has been modelled. The angle of attack indicators are modelled. We do have the appropriate lighting. Down on the caution and warning panel, currently we have fuel pressure and oil pressure, generators 1 and 2, hydraulic pressure and AC, expecting to see all of those. And just testing the panel there, again cancelling the master warning. And all of the lights correctly illuminated. So the alarm panel has been checked, the landing gear lever is selected down, we have 3 greens. Throttle levers are in the idle detent, prop levers are in the min RPM position. Condition levers are in the cut-off position. Pitch trim is set neutral. For the before start checks, the park brake is set. Doors have been closed, chocks have been removed. The beacon light can go on. Seatbelts and no smoking signs once again are both set on. The left and right auxiliary fuel pumps can first go through to on. Just checking their operation. And then back to auto. Currently showing around 50 psi there. On the right side, again 3 to on and back to auto, and same fuel pressure there on the left side. Left and right main pumps can go on, and you can see there as the main pumps kick in, the auxiliary fuel pumps go into the standby. So fuel pumps are checked. For the left and right fuel pressure, we're looking for a minimum of 40 psi, again currently showing around 45 psi in the system. Brake pressure is checked. We are now clear for the start. We'll just check the prop area, assuming that our ground crew have already cleared the area. We're starting the left-hand engine first, so the left starter, the switch can go into the start position. We do have the starter light. And of course, as usual, monitoring the engine here as it runs up. They're waiting here until we have 12% on the gas generator. And just coming up on 12% now, so the left condition lever can go into the idle position. Introducing fuel into the engine. NG there continuing to rise, the prop RPM as well, just coming up. And you can see there the T5 temperature coming up as well, so we do have a good light off. Prop there just spooling up. One of the few things I don't particularly care for on the aircraft is the prop hub animation there. You can see that's a little bit clunky. The engine sounds as well, unfortunately, are very quiet internally. The sound set is a little bit disappointing overall. I did try and switch out the sounds for the default King Air sounds, which sorts out the engine issues, but then as a result, you don't have all of the ancillary cockpit sounds, which are very nice on the aircraft. Anyway, good start there on the left. Just coming back up to the overhead. The start light is out, the starter has disconnected, so we do have a good start. And just checking the oil pressure there, that's come up to around 80 psi into the green band. So again, good start there on the left, we'll do the same on the right. Gauging the right starter. Start light is illuminated. NG is increasing. And just coming up through 12%, condition lever through to the idle position. We should see the engine start light go out, the starter cut out at around 45%. On the NG, just coming up through 40% now. Prop just running up. And you can see there the start light is out, the start has disconnected. T5 coming up, all pressure nicely in the green. And it looks as though we do have two good starts. Master warning there, we'll cancel that for now. That probably relates to the AC power, we'll get the generators on in just a moment. We'll move the condition levers into the high idle position. And as per the checklist, we'll get both of our generators on. And you really do feel rather like you've got your head pressed up against the overhead panel in the Xingu. It does make finding some of the switching a little bit more tricky. Number one generator there into the on position. And same there for the number two. You can see they are now picking up the load. And sure enough, we have both generator cautions extinguished. The AC there relating to the aircraft air conditioning. We'll set that up in just a moment's time. So for the after start checks, radio master is on. We'll come into GPS there as well. We're going to be using the GNS 530 for the nav today. So nav GPS switch into GPS. And we'll just wait for the GNS 530 to initialize. Weather radar can go through to standby. And running through the before taxi checks, backup attitude indicator is uncaged. Windshield de-ice not required. The air turbine intake de-ice not required. Same for the leading edge and the blade de-ice. PX heat can stay off. Probe heats will select on. And showing lights there on both sides. Battery temperature we can test. So they're just coming up into the limits, 150 degrees Fahrenheit. And then back into the normal range. We'll cancel the master warning once again. We'll carry out a crossfeed test. So crossfeed into the left. You can see there that the blinker indicator is working correctly. Just initialize the GNS 530 to set up the flight plan later on. And same there on the right, we do have a good crossfeed. GNS 530 just running through its satellite acquisition phase at the moment. Elevator trim. It's at neutral, the flaps will come through to 35%. Flap lever just down here on the center console, so now I'm to the takeoff position there on the flaps. And indicating 35%, just visually check the flaps here as well. Good there on the left. And same there on the right. The flight controls will come fully back and fully forward. There's neutral, full left, full right, and neutral, and on the rudder we have full left, full right, and neutral. Taxiing momentarily, so we'll get the taxi light on. For the pressurization system, again we need to work our way through that to cancel the master warning. We're going to be cruising below 10,000 foot today, so it's going to be an unpressurized flight. We'll come up to the pressurization panel. We want the AC switch set on. Ventilation switch there as well, set on. The AC manual auto switch needs to be in the auto position, which it is. And the on vent switch needs to go into vent. And the central position there currently in vent. You can hear now we do have airflow into the aircraft. Left and right cut-up valves need to be closed. They are both currently closed, so that's the pressurization panel set. And we are now essentially ready for the taxi. Just before we head out though, we'll come down to the GNS 530 and we'll set that up here for the flight. So down to the unit, we'll go to flight plan. We're going to be departing out of Sierra Bravo Papa Charlie. A little bit fiddly there on the click spots. And we'll use the keyboard here as an assist. We have Sierra Bravo Papa Charlie. That is the Poços de Caldas airport. We'll hit enter. Next is going to be waypoint Nimpu, and there that will be November India Mike Papa Uniform. After that we're looking for waypoint Regem, Romeo Echo Golf Echo Mike. And again we just need to hit the keyboard symbology, Romeo Echo Golf Echo Mike. We can hit enter. Then it'll be waypoint Ropug, which is Romeo Oscar Papa Uniform Golf. And then on towards waypoint Motvi. Which is Mike Oscar Tango Victor India. There's Motvi. And that'll have us inbound towards Barra de Garças airport, which is Sierra Bravo Bravo Whiskey. And again we do have the correct route. So just a quick run through the flight plan. You can see we do have waypoint Nimpu, Regem, Ropug, Motvi and destination. Showing 490 miles to the flight. That concurs with the flight plan. So we'll come out of flight plan for now. We'll go into the more useful of the two map modes. And in terms of the range, we'll come out to around 20 miles for the time being. So that's the flight plan setup complete. That is the before taxi checklist complete. We're going to be taxiing out for runway 27. It's a fairly short taxi, so we'll make our way over there and I'll join you at the holding point. We can finish setting up for the departure.
Papa Tango Oscar Golf descida. Papa Tango Oscar Golf Sierra, informação Recife. Descida para critério, o esporte não atrasa do conhecimento do FIS para reportar no momento, afastado dos 7 milhas de Petrolina, vai chamar a rádio. 7 milhas chama a rádio, se eu quero.
Okay, so we are now down at the holding point for runway 27. Again, overall it was a fairly short taxi for us here out towards the runway. Overall I have to say that the 121 actually taxis quite nicely. The aircraft just takes a little bit of thrust to get rolling. The acceleration rate and the ground speed thereafter are pretty reasonable, so nice effort there from BRsimDesigns. Anyway, in terms of the before takeoff checks, the park brake is set, brake pressure is checked. Props are set through to max RPM, condition lever set through to the high detent. We'll arm up the auto feather. Flaps, once again just verifying we do have 35% indicated. The inertial separators can go on. Weather radar will set on and through to a range of 25 nautical miles. Passenger signs are selected on. Transponder is set on. We'll squawk mode Charlie, and we've got a code there of 7000. Taxi light can come off. We'll take the landing lights on. Strobe lights on there as well. And we are now set, ready for the takeoff, so park brake can come off. Having a good look here on final, checking we're all clear. And again, just coming up slightly there on the power levers to get the aircraft rolling. Now that we're moving, we can come back again on the throttles. And as you can see, a pretty reasonable taxi rate there overall. You don't really need to ride the brakes to keep the aircraft in check. Just as we come around the turn, we'll make sure we're all clear on upwind as well. And getting ourselves lined up here on runway 27. So for the takeoff, we'll obviously keep a good eye here on our engine torque and T5 indications. VR is 90 knots. So coming up on the power levers. Directional control as well in the 121 during the takeoff feels pretty decent. It's not overly sensitive, which is nice. Okay, so power is set. Airspeed's live. Just coming through 80 knots. And there's 90, so back on the yoke. Aircraft perhaps just ever so slightly heavy there in pitch during the rotation, but overall feels pretty nice. We do have positive climb, so we'll take the gear up. And initially we're just going to climb here at 120 knots till we're up through 500 feet, just coming up through 300 feet now. And there's 500 feet, so we'll come back to a climb power setting. So good there now. On the throttles, we'll come back as well on the props. And starting a gentle right bank here out towards the northwest. So power is set, we'll pitch the nose down, build our speed now up to 140 knots, we've cleared the high terrain. And as the speed builds here, we can retract the flaps. We'll just slew the heading bug round here as well. We'll come onto an intercept heading of around 345. That should get us back on our flight plan course out towards waypoint Nimpu. Okay, again, good there now on the speed. Just rolling out on our heading. Up through 5,500 feet. So it's trimming for 140 knots. You can see the CDI bar there just starting to come in.
Frequência 126,7, secundária 124,55.
And the aircraft is now nicely trimmed off. We'll take the autopilot in. We'll come into heading. And out. We'll go the vertical speed of plus 1,000 feet per minute. That seems to hold quite nicely at 140 knots. And just waiting again for that CDI bar to come in, and then we'll come back into nav here on the autopilot. In terms of the after takeoff checks, landing gear is up, lights are out, flaps are retracted. Inspection lights are off. Inertial separators can go off. Auto feather is selected off. Prop sync will leave for now. Pressurization showing a cabin altitude there of around 6,500 feet. That corresponds with our current altitude. We're expecting to see that today, of course, not having pressurized the aircraft for our flights. Cabin vertical speed as well, maintaining level. Altimeter is set. We'll start a QNH of 1007 for the flight. Autopilot is set. Landing lights will leave on. Again, we're going to be cruising here today below 10,000 feet. There's 1,000 to go. And showing about 43 miles to run towards waypoint Nimpu.
4543, centralismo, variable voo 380.
Just coming onto that CDI bar, so we'll go into nav.
1543, como recebe agora?
There's nav now on the autopilot.
Edge.
And we shouldn't have much wind around, so we'll just center up the heading bug here ahead of time. 500 feet here to go in the climb. Definitely got the sun in our faces a little bit at the moment. The Xingu does have working sun visors, although they're pretty limited in terms of their range, as you can see. And in fact, they do get a little bit in the way at times, even when they're folded away. We'll keep that down for now, though. Again, of course, flying out towards the northwest. Late into the evening here, we are going to be a little bit blinded by the sun. So just approaching our level off altitude, making sure the aircraft does level us off, and overall there you can see that the 121 does a pretty nice job in terms of the autopilot. I'm sure that we're using the default sober autopilot here, but that seems to have improved a lot over the last year or so, and it's pretty reliable these days. So nicely established on our course, 40 miles now to run towards Nimpu. Just come out a little bit further on the range here on the GNS 530, you can see the waypoints. In terms of the cruise checks then, inspection lights, not required. De-ice is set as required. Pressurization, once again we should see 8,000 feet now on the cabin altitude, which we do. The pressurization is checked. Passenger signs, we can take the seatbelt signs off now for the guys down the back. Condition levers, according to the checklist we want to leave those in the high position. Slightly unusual there, I would have thought. Prop levers are set. We'll leave the power setting as is. We're within our limits there on both the torque and the T5 temps. That's going to give us a reasonably nice high cruise speed. We've got a fairly lengthy cruise here over towards destination today. So prop levers are set, throttles are set. In terms of our fuel consumption, fuel flow there around 400 pounds an hour currently. Just coming down below about 1,400 pounds there in each main tank. So we've got about 3 hours worth of fuel on board the aircraft. And that's going to be enough in terms of our endurance today. that's pretty much it in terms of our departure out of Poços de Caldas. Nicely established down here in the cruise up at around 8,000. Again, we've got a couple of hours to kill here as we make our way over towards Barra de Garças. As usual, we'll head outside the aircraft. Certainly Brazil, actually a really nice part of the world to fly in within Microsoft Flight Simulator. It's not an area I've flown much in the sim before, but the photo imagery is actually pretty nice. And certainly there's some pretty challenging areas of the country, some pretty remote strips as well. So as usual, we can continue over in the cruise a little bit more cinematically. And we'll come back to the flight deck of the Xingu for our arrival into another beautiful V1 Studio scenery.
Romeo Charlie mais alta, ciente, precisa via corredor Delta 2, reporte na vertical da praia de noite.
Reporta lá o Charlie mais alto.
Rádio 2723, Caneta Torre São Luís, frequência 118,90.
Azul 2723, está autorizado pouso, pista 06, vento 090 graus 4 nós, ajuste no 011, assistente a pista molhada. Pouso no 06. Romeo Charlie mais alfa, vai efetuar um pouso aqui no Serra de Chaleco devido à chuva aqui no setor norte.
Papa Romeo Charlie mais alta, ciente, pouso no Serra de Chaleco.
Vento 120 graus 4 nós. Azul 2723, Tessola 5 na alfa, posição 1. Papa Romeo Serra Fox Mike, observando o box 0 nessa azul, após o mesmo, autorizado o táxi, tem ingresso via alfa, pista 06, reporta alinhado.
Okay, so welcome back to the flight deck of the Xingu. As you can see, getting fairly late on in the evening here now over Brazil, just coming up around 6 PM local time. We've still got that sun in our faces at the moment. We are also just approaching our top descent point. We've got about 20 miles to run here towards Bravo Whiskey 003, which is the start of the RMP approach that we're going to be flying inbound towards destination. So we'll just get the aircraft descending. We can brief up the rest of the approach in just a moment's time. Initially, we can descend down to 3,500 feet. We'll set that up here on the Cat 140.
Azul 4590, confirmando pouso 1838.
That's 3,500. We'll go with the descent rate of VS minus 500. Again, bearing in mind that we are flying the cabin unpressurized here today, so we'll try and keep things comfortable for our passengers with a nice low vertical speed.
37,
So we'll just run through the descent checklist and then we can brief up the approach.
1837.
In terms of our descent checks, the avionics, GPS and autopilot are all set. Again, we've got the RMP approach here for runway 07, and we'll talk more about that in just a moment's time. We'll just keep our power setting as is for now. We'll build up a bit of speed here in the descent. ILS frequency not relevant. De-icing systems are set as required. Seatbelt signs can go back on. The cabin altitude, once again, showing a cabin altitude of around 7,000 feet, which does concur with our current altitude. That makes sense given that we're flying unpressurized. Cabin vertical speed is stable. And we are now below 10,000 feet. Once again, we do have the landing lights on. And the altimeter, we've got a QNH of 1007. So that's it in terms of the descent checks. In terms of the arrival briefing, as discussed, we're going to be flying the RMP approach for runway 07 into Barra de Garças. Let's plate 12-1, it is an RNAV approach. The final approach course is 071. We're coming in onto runway 07 today, not really too much there to do with the wind, it's actually pretty calm on the ground, but obviously again with the sun setting here out towards the west. If we're coming on runway 25, we're going to have the sun rather in our faces for the approach, so 07 just makes things a little bit easier there. We're going to have the sun out towards our backs. So again, final approach course 071. Minima is 1445, that's a DH of 295, and we've got 300 foot set there on the rad out. Aerodrome elevation is 1160, so just bearing in mind here we've only got about another 6,000 foot here in the descent. and we'll aim to have the aircraft broadly configured by around 2,000 feet. In terms of the terrain, there is a little bit of high terrain out towards the northeast of the field. We've got some hills out there and a mast up at around 2,400 feet. In terms of the weather, obviously a pretty lovely evening here actually, just a little bit of high level cloud around. Pretty hot evening as well, temperature still up in the low 30s. The QNH is 1007, again pretty calm winds on the ground at destination. In terms of the landing, again landing 07, that does mean we're probably going to have to backtrack the runway once we've got ourselves on the ground. I don't think we're going to make the first exit off on the left, it's the only exit as well off the runway. That's fine though, we've got plenty of runway available, it'll be manual braking, probably no need for the beta range since we'll be rolling through. Approach speed is going to be 100 knots, coming over the threshold around 80 knots. The config will be using full flaps for the landing. In terms of our fuel state, coming up on around 700 pounds now in each main tank, still burning around 400 per hour. So just shy of 2 hours worth of endurance currently. Plenty of fuel for our approach in towards Barra de Garças. And plenty of fuel as well if we need to make the go around. The only real consideration here is the lack of daylight conditions. Again, we've got about 25 minutes now before the sun goes down. Not a major concern for us though, of course we do have an aircraft that's both IFR capable and certified for nighttime conditions. Really, we're all good there. So just coming down through 6,000 feet. And you can see we are approaching Bravo Whiskey 003 from 004. You can send down to 2,800 feet. And then maintaining that until we hit a 3-degree slope at Bravo Whiskey 006.
Conecta 5103, informação Recife. Papa Tanto Vitor Quebec Juliette, semi-controle Teresina.
So down through 6,000, we'll just center up that heading bug. And just about to come over the waypoint. We'll just see what we've got in terms of track miles to run once we come over Bravo Whiskey 003, see how we're doing in terms of the profile. Again, aiming to be level 3,500 by Bravo Whiskey 004. So descent checks are out of the way, we'll just hold the approach checklist now until we're on the approach. In terms of any items that we can just tick off there ahead of time, once again we do have the passenger signs on. Inspection lights not required, landing lights are set on, altimeter is set, and we'll hold the checklist there. The next item is to take the flaps. So right turn now onto a course of 341, we'll set up the HSI. There's 341, and again we'll center up the heading bug. And showing about 1 minute here till Bravo Whiskey 004. Still got another 2,000 foot to lose, so we're getting a little bit high here on the approach now. Unfortunately for our passengers, we're just going to have to steepen up that descent path. We'll go with 800 feet per minute on the vertical speed. And again, we need to hold 3,500 feet until we're over Bravo Whiskey 004. We can then set 2,800. 5,000 feet, so 4,000 feet now to lose. Once we come over Bravo Whiskey 004, we've got about 10 miles to track inbound. They're looking good here in terms of the profile, expecting another right turn now, so 071 on the course.
Voo BSR cancelado 1723, nível de voo 090, correto, ia aquecido para a rota. Estimado terminal aos 1743.
071, we'll center up the heading bug. And as soon as we've done that, we can set 2,800 feet. So we can turn now down to 2,800, we'll set that on the cap 140. 2,800 selected, and we need to hold that until we're over Bravo Whiskey 006, another mile to run there. Down through 4,500, and now visual with the runway. Since we're visual and we got the Pappies there in sight as well, no point flying the rest of the RMP approach, so we'll just get the aircraft leveled off and then we'll take out the autopilot. We'll come back on the power levers as well now, we can start slowing up here for the approach. Again, just letting the aircraft get itself stable. Speed's rolling off nicely. We'll hold the gear for now. We've still got 2 miles to run towards the final descent point, and just coming down through 4,000 feet. We'll get rid of the sun visor there as well, not needed. Again, approaching here on runway 07. As you can see though, it's still slightly in the way. Anyway, autopilot coming out. And speed back through 140 knots. We'll maintain 120 initially down final approach. Take the gear down. And obviously a little bit high here on the approach currently, so we'll correct that, get ourselves back onto the Pappy. Good. Now in terms of the speed on the gear there, we've got 3 greens. And again, much easier flying in these sorts of conditions. The runway nicely illuminated for us, with the sun off our backs. Just looking visually there, starting to come back towards profile, still showing 4 whites on the Pappy. Good there on the speed. We'll take a stage of flap here as well, so take off flaps. Just get some drag out, again just helping in terms of that descent rate to get us back onto profile. So continuing on with the approach checks, flaps are set as required for the time being, de-ice is set as required. Left and right inertial separators are selected on, prop sync is off. Condition levers are set through to high. Auto feather is selected on. Weather radar will leave for the time being. Landing gear again we do have down 3 greens. And again, speed looking good. We'll come through to landing flap. Just letting that speed now start to roll back towards 100 knots. And flaps are showing down, so once again we have pitch through to fully fine, undercarriage is down, flaps are set. The landing clearance has been received, the runway is clear, speed looking good. Just a touch shy there on the speed, so just coming up on the power. And we can get the nose down slightly here as well, get us back onto that Pappy. We've got 3 whites, 1 red. And now on the Pappy. Back towards 90 knots now, we want around 80 knots over the threshold. Fully configured for the landing. And a little bit tricky to make out in these lighting conditions, but again, the exit off to the left, we'd have to jam the brakes on, probably come into full beta range as well on the props to make that, so we'll just roll through down to the end, then we can backtrack to vacate. Overall, the Xingu actually a very nice aircraft hand fly. Stable, predictable, nice and smooth on the controls. It's off the power levers. Just coming into the touchdown zone. Aircraft wanting to float a little bit, there's touchdown. We'll take the beta range. We'll save the brakes. And even just using the beta range alone there, the aircraft coming very quickly to a stop. Probably a little bit unrealistically so, I would say. So out of the beta range, we'll roll through down to the end, as I say, we'll make a 180 and we'll backtrack to vacate. Okay, so vacating the runway off to the right, we've got a little bit of a climb here to get the aircraft up through the main taxiway. Just get ourselves around the corner and then we'll sort out our lights. So just using a little bit of power to keep the speed up. And we do have the aircraft straightened out, so landing lights can come off. Take the taxi light on, strobes off there as well. Bring up the flaps, where the radar can go off. And running through the afterland checks, the flaps are retracting, de-ice. Again, we'll just get the aircraft slowed down here before we continue on with the checklist. So de-icing is set as required. Probe heats can go off. Inertial separators will take off as well. And just bring ourselves in here towards the parking area.
3294, Centro Recife, mantém nível de voo 350.
So strobe lights are selected off, landing lights are off, taxi lights on. Transponder is off. Now we'll just swing ourselves around here, we'll get ourselves parked up, then we can run through the last few items.
Papa Sierra, Alfa Romeo India, Centro Recife. Confirme o nível final que solicito.
Onto the brakes. Park brake is set. So again, transponder is selected off, auto feather is selected off. Weather radar is off, elevator trim. You can just return to the neutral position. The parking and shutdown checks, the park brake is set, brake pressure is good, taxi lights are off. Throttle levers are in the idle detent, prop levers can come back towards minimum RPM.
Agora contato radar, Alfa Romeo India, passando 8.000 pés, autorizado nível final 170.
The left and right cutoff valves we can close, so back up to the pressurization panel. They are both set closed. The on ventilation switch needs to go to the off position. Ventilation switch can go off, and same there for the AC switch. It's cancelling the master warning. Master radio switch is selected off. Condition levers will bring back into the cut-off position. So firstly here on the left. And good run down there on the left, we'll do the same on the right. Two good shutdowns. The left and right auxiliary fuel pumps can go off. Main pumps can go off there as well. And same for the left and right generators, we'll select both of those off. Beacon light is off, and that is our shutdown checklist complete. So there you go guys, I do hope you enjoyed our outing in the BRsimDesigns EMB121 Xingu, and our look at the V1 Studios sceneries within Microsoft Flight Simulator. Certainly both sceneries are very beautifully done, lots of nice attention to detail, and they're very reasonably priced as well, so well worth considering if you like flying in this part of the world. Thank you very much to V1 Studio, I think they made a really nice option for the flight here today. As far as the BRsimDesigns EMB121 goes, this was actually the first BRsimDesigns aircraft that I've tried within the sim, and overall I have to say that I was actually very pleasantly surprised. Of course the aircraft isn't study level, and there certainly are better options available out there for the sim. Visually perhaps the Xingu is lacking a little bit versus some of the competition, but even then, visually I do think the aircraft still feels the part. There are just one or two details that I would like to see refined. For example, we talked about the animation there on the prop spinners. The sounds are a little bit of a mixed bag, predominantly the aircraft makes use of the default King Air sounds I believe. Externally the engine sounds are absolutely fine, internally as discussed they do leave a little bit to be desired. Otherwise though, I really like the soundscape of the 121, it's quite clear that BRsimDesigns have put in quite a bit of effort there. Lots of nice additional sounds, for example you can hear the air conditioning system, the avionics fans. Seemingly all of the cockpit controls and switches had associated sounds, which is always something I really like to see. The system's depth as well was pleasantly surprising, whilst I do think some of the system's logic was a little bit canned. Overall, most systems do seem to have been modelled, do seem to behave appropriately. The same with the flight model, it feels reasonably default in nature, but the aircraft is very pleasant to fly. As I mentioned, very stable, Very predictable on the controls, easy to hand fly. It's really nice as well that we get a few extra features with the aircraft, namely the onboard tablet, the external ground equipment. So again, all in all, I think a very solid effort from BRsimDesigns with the Xingu. Currently, we don't have too many steam gauge turboprop options available within the sim, and for the price, I think I paid around £15. The 121 certainly offered up some fun. Anyway, ladies and gents, once again I do hope you enjoyed the flight. If you did, then please consider giving the video a like. If you want to see more content from the channel, then please consider subscribing as well. And if you'd like to help support the channel, you can do so by becoming a channel member or patron. As always, a huge thank you to my channel members and patrons for all of your support. I do hope that all of you are having a great day wherever you are. Take really good care, and I will see you all again soon.